Hey, what's up guys? My name is Cherno. Welcome back to another Hazel development log. Is anyone else as excited as I am right now? So last time we had one of these, we were basically in the middle of Vulcan Week. I think I had just wrapped up Vulcan Week, and I didn't want to share too many of my thoughts regarding Vulcan at that point because, of course, I was exhausted from the entire week of just non-stop Vulcaning. Vulcaning. We should get that on a sweatshirt. Except maybe not. Now, whilst Vulcan Week may be over, and I mean, we're not completely done with Vulcan yet, there's still quite a lot of things that I want to do and will continue to do throughout live streams in the next coming few weeks. I don't really want to spend today talking too much about Vulcan itself. I want to actually wait until I've pretty much finished that and actually gotten to the point where I can do everything using the Vulcan renderer that I used to be able to do in the OpenGL renderer, and then we'll talk about Vulcan in a little bit more detail. What I wanted to talk about today was just the concept of longer term planning. So in other words, not just writing a quick little to-do list of things that you're going to get done today or this week, but just having a general sense of direction and my opinions about the importance of having something like that. I've always been a person to set long-term goals and have fairly ambitious ideas in my mind. I've never really liked the idea of, okay, let's just focus on this week, let's take it one step at a time. I never really liked that, which of course has its own downsides. It's very important to be able to do stuff in the short term. My mind has always been kind of floating in the longer term, you know, what are we going to be able to do with this? Why are we doing this? Where are we heading towards? What are we going to do with our lives? That kind of existential stuff. And so because my mind kind of works a little bit more like that, or maybe is inclined to think about that a lot more than one might say is healthy, it's important for me to consider what we're doing in the grand scheme of things and not just what we're focusing on one step at a time, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But first I want to mention that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. For those of you who still don't know what Skillshare is and you haven't tried it out for yourselves, Skillshare is an amazing online learning community where millions of creative and curious people from all around the world can come together into one spot to learn a new skill. Basically, it's a platform with a whole bunch of amazing bite-sized video courses on various things. So whether you're interested in learning more about photography, videography, how to market the product you're working on, general business stuff, art and illustration, other creative topics, music, productivity, Skillshare has got you covered. Now, I don't know what kind of situation you guys are in, of course, but where I live, we're in the middle of quite a serious lockdown right now, and so there really isn't much to do. And one of the things that I've been noticing is that the less productive I am and the more I just slack off and don't really do anything with my life, the worse I feel. There's only so much entertainment you can kind of fill yourself with before you just begin to feel empty and you need something a little bit more meaningful to do with your time, or at least I do. I think pouring some of your time into productivity, into something creative, maybe picking up an illustration class on Skillshare or something like that, is a really good way to make sure that you're still mentally taking care of yourself. Coming in at just under $10 a month for an annual subscription, Skillshare is a great place to do that. But of course, Skillshare is giving you guys a free trial for a limited time, so definitely click the link in the description below to check it out. I think it's a really good way to spend some of your time. As I mentioned, planning something long-term is kind of important for me. It might not be important for you. Everyone works differently, which is why my number one advice most of the time is do what works for you. This of course is more of like a personal vlog, I guess, where I talk about obviously what's working for me and all the progress I'm making. So take everything I say with a grain of salt as usual, it's just my opinion. Working on larger projects like a game engine, as I mentioned before, it's very easy to actually get overwhelmed. And if you just sit down at your desk on Monday morning and you think, okay, what am I gonna work on this week? I have no idea. Let's take a look at all of the various features I could jam into my game engine. You will probably feel pretty bad by the end of that. The reason being, there's an infinite amount of stuff that you could shove into a game engine. I mean, look at Unreal and Unity. They're still building their technology and they have like thousands of people. Because of that, I thought one of the best things that I could actually do for myself was to sit down, think about the near future, meaning the next quarter, maybe until the end of the year, that kind of time frame, and actually think about manageable chunks of work that I can complete in that time that will actually fulfill some kind of goal. So in other words, I thought that the work that I would do in that time frame would need to be working towards some kind of feature or goal that would actually make Hazel essentially more usable or take it to the next level. For example, one of my goals with Vulcan and why I wanted to actually implement Vulcan in the first place was, apart from the fact that I wanted to rewrite the renderer and make it a little bit more capable, I also really want to get real-time ray tracing into Hazel before the end of the year. Now, whilst that's something that I would probably be working on right now, if I could, I also have to consider what the game engine needs, because I am a team of one, essentially. There are quite a lot of people in the community helping out nowadays, which is amazing, of course. But I still need to consider, this is not just kind of my little passion project that I'm working on the side. Like, this needs to progress into a game engine. There's a significant amount of people who are investing in this and who are actually, paying attention to this. And I don't want to just work on whatever I feel like, because I don't feel very responsible doing that. And we're not going to get to the point where we can actually start using Hazel very quickly if I spend all of my time doing just various graphics things like ray tracing that, of course, are fairly low priority in the grand scheme of things. So because of that, I went back to the start and I thought about what a game engine kind of is and what's needed to actually make it usable. In a similar way to how you would perhaps build a very advanced and complicated programming API, going to the end and working backwards is kind of helpful. So in other words, let's think about what game we want to make with Hazel, something simple. And what I decided to do was some kind of simple Mario clone, maybe with some extra features. Maybe it's not exactly the same as Mario in game mechanics or anything, but it should look kind of similar to Mario. Maybe it's like a 2D platformer, maybe we extend it in certain ways, but that's the basic idea. So to make something like Mario, like the original 1985 Mario, what do we need to put into Hazel? Is it possible for us to make it right now? Well, no. Okay, why not? What do we need to be able to create Mario in Hazel? And of course, I am talking about Hazel Dev specifically, which has like the full level editor and like the play and stop of the scene and like all the C# scripting, all of that stuff. So what does that need to actually make it possible to make a game like Mario? And so I sat down on live stream, actually, twitch.tv/Cherno is where I usually stream. I sat down on the live stream with a bunch of you guys as well, and I just talked about what we would need to make that happen, and I put all of that down into a roadmap onto Trello. Now, I'll leave a link in the description below to the roadmap that you're currently seeing on the screen, but this is just hazelengine.com/dev/roadmap. This is the roadmap for the development version of Hazel, which is available to patrons. Putting together this kind of list of features that I would do one after the other makes developing Hazel a lot easier, because I don't have to sit down and think about what I need. I've already done that. I can just sit down and start working on whatever it is. It's kind of like going to the gym in a way. If you can just get yourself to the gym, you sit down at a piece of equipment and you start actually doing the work, you don't need to think about it. You just do the work, you just shut up and do it, even if you don't want to, because you know that this is in your plan, or that you're already there, you're doing it. I think it's very similar in this regard. You can sit down arbitrarily and program anything you want and get nowhere, but if you know that, okay, I have to do this, I'm not doing anything else but this because this is the step that I'm currently on, I think the work just flows a little bit more easy, because you don't need to think about like, oh, why am I even doing this? You know why you're doing this. You're doing this because you're working towards a particular goal. This needs to be done. You can't get there before you finish this. So clearly, let's just shut up and get this done. Stop complaining. You'll also note in the roadmap, there are some sections for Electron Diffuser and Peter as well. These are two lovely people from the community who have actually just decided to contribute to Hazel. Because there are more and more people asking to contribute to Hazel Dev, I've decided to make some kind of like community roadmap as well, so that people can see what other people are working on, because there's been situations where two people have basically worked on the same feature, and then whoever finishes it first gets to merge it in, and then the other person is just like, well, that was a bit of a waste of time. So to avoid that, I just want to be a little bit more transparent with what everyone's working on. So if someone comes along and says, hey, I want to work on this, then we can actually see if anyone else is working on that, and they don't have to worry about potentially stepping on someone else's work. More on that kind of community stuff later. Now, I also made a bit of a roadmap for the Game Engine series for that version of Hazel. That's just, I'll leave the link to that as well, but it's hazelengine.com/roadmap. That is more or less a roadmap of the actual Game Engine series on YouTube. So I also thought it would be, of course, a good idea to sit down and think about what we're working towards for that. It's very similar to the stuff that we're doing in Hazel Dev. We're just doing it in Hazel Dev because I actually want to put together a game properly using like C# scripting and everything, but it is also the next logical step for the Game Engine series. I've decided to put a lot more of my effort towards just basically developing this stuff in Hazel Dev as quickly as I can, and then the game engine series is just going to be me essentially taking code from Hazel Dev, rewriting it live on stream, live on the video, and then explaining everything that I'm doing and why. I think it's going to clear my mind a little bit more for developing this game engine series because I already know exactly the code that's been written because it's been written in Hazel Dev, especially because this kind of stuff in Hazel Dev, we might as well just take that kind of more tested, more ready code and put that into the game engine series just straight away. I also think that it's important to not be too harsh with deadlines on yourself. I mean, I'm taking this stuff seriously, obviously, and if I was potentially working like in a game studio or something like that, of course there would be deadlines. My manager would expect me to finish this like in the next sprint or in the next couple of weeks or whatever. But I think it's kind of unrealistic to try and run myself as if I am working for a game studio or for a professional company, because I mean, the fact of the matter is I'm not. And so if I start playing pretend, I feel like I'll just end up being a little bit more stressed. And I have tried that before. I've tried working like 9 to 5 or whatever, and, you know, actually have deadlines and pretend that I am at a real job, but I just don't think it makes me happy, and I don't think I end up being as productive if I'm kind of forcing myself into that schedule. One of the reasons I left EA was because I didn't want to work 9 to 5. I wanted to do more with my life, and of course this current lockdown is preventing a whole bunch of that, but I still think it's important to try and work out a work schedule that works for you. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to be more happy doing the work that you're doing, you're going to produce better quality work and you'll be more likely to work more often. And for someone like me, I think that's very important to make sure that I'm mentally in the right place, because if I'm not, there's not much stopping me from just being like, I'm not gonna work today, I've got no boss. Anyway, those are kind of the plans, I guess, for Hazel Dev and the Game Engine series. Check out those roadmaps in the description below. I did make a specific section for comments as well, especially in the Game Engine series Hazel roadmap. So if you have any like concerns, or if you think this roadmap is rubbish, then you can actually comment right on Trello and leave it there as well. But obviously I'll read the comments for this video below as well. If you're interested in grabbing the source code to Hazel Dev or checking out all of the past backlog of Hazel Dev live streams, check out patreon.com/the Cherno. It's the best way to help support me and support Hazel and this whole Game Engine series project. Thank you to all of you amazing patrons for your support. There's so much amazing stuff coming in the future that I'm super excited for. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.